Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and never-ending spoiler season continues, and I mean that literally. Like, it seems like they want us sort of constantly on the hook, you know, even between sets. Obviously, we got a lot of sets coming out, but even between sets, it seems like they're dropping spoilers for other sets that are coming up, you know, maybe a few months or even a year in advance. They were doing this with Infinity and Warhammer like almost a year before those sets came out, and now we get Phyrexia All Will Be One, and then before we even get March of the Machine, we're getting a couple little spoilers in between there, and Secret Lair drops too. They're throwing those in there, so it just seems like there's almost constantly content to be talking about, which I guess as a content creator isn't bad. Gets a little overwhelming though. It's got to get a little overwhelming for a lot of players. And they just came out with March of the Machine Aftermath, released the set last week, and then just a couple days later started dropping some stuff from Lord of the Rings. And again, we already got some stuff from Lord of the Rings. I didn't want to talk about it a whole bunch because there was a lot of cards that were referring to the ring and the ring tempting you and all that stuff. And I didn't really want to cover it because we didn't know what any of that stuff meant, right? Now we know what that stuff means, so let's start talking about it. So we have this thing called the ring, right? And this is going to, you know, it's essentially a rules card that's going to help explain what's going on here. I'm going to look at the back first. On the back, it says the ring tempts you. So as the ring tempts you, you get an emblem named the ring, which I guess would be the front side if you don't have one. So obviously, if you already have one, then it's not going to do nothing. So you can only get one, obviously, right? Then your emblem gains its next ability, and you choose a creature you control to become or remain your ring bearer. So when the ring tempts you, you get that emblem, and you're going to choose one of your creatures, and that creature is going to be the ring bearer, which of course that term actually is important. So the ring can tempt you even if you don't control a creature, which I think is interesting because, you know, what happens if you get a creature after the fact? Does it do anything, or does it, you know, can you then choose that creature after you've already gotten the ring? The ring gains its abilities in order from top to bottom, right? Which is all that stuff on the other side. Once it gains an ability, it has that ability for the rest of the game. Each time the ring tempts you, you must choose a creature if you control one. So I guess, you know, if you don't have a creature when the ring tempts you the first time, you probably will have to wait until the ring tempts you again so that you can choose a creature, right? Pretty sure that's how that works. And then if you get tempted by the ring again, you can switch to a different creature if you want to. Each player can have only one emblem named the ring and only one ring bearer at a time. And the ring, your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. That's really, really important. You know, just rules wise in general, it's really, really important. And the reason why is because this is a way to make a non-legendary creature legendary, which I'm pretty sure we don't have any way to do that. This is incredibly significant. Can be incredibly significant, right? And if for whatever reason you're looking for a way, you know, maybe you had made a deck sometime in the past and for whatever reason you wanted to make a non-legendary creature legendary, this is a way to do it, right? This is the, I guess, first ability of the ring is your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So you choose a creature that isn't legendary. I mean, if it's already legendary, it doesn't do nothing. You know, it's not going to change anything. But if you choose a, you know, an Eternal Witness or something, it is now legendary. And that is very significant, very significant. All right, the next step we're going to go to is whenever your ring bearer attacks, draw a card, then discard a card. That's okay. I don't know if you want to build around this. You know, you can think of this like Dungeons a little bit. I mean, it's similar to Monarchy, where you're getting the monarchy and it does stuff. I would say Dungeons is more apt comparison because there's lots of stuff going on, right? With Monarchy, you're just drawing a card. With Dungeons, there's lots of different things going on, and I've never built a dungeon deck myself, but you could build around the things that are happening in the dungeon, and here it can be the same case, right? Where I can build a ring deck where maybe I want to be drawing and discarding, because whenever your ring bearer attacks, you get to loot. That's something you can actually build around, right? Whenever your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices it at the end of combat. That's pretty darn good, right? Obviously, it's at the end of combat, so your ring bearer can still die. So your ring bearer is going to attack when it gets blocked by a creature. And of course, it can't be blocked by a creature with greater power. So, I mean, obviously there is a situation where you can be blocked by a creature with lesser power, but, you know, like a wall, that's like an O7 wall is going to obviously be able to block your ring bearer, but then it's probably not going to die in combat. But then that creature's controller sacrifices it at the end of combat. So I guess that's covering mostly that situation. And then the next step is whenever your ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. That's pretty good. So the way you gain these abilities is by the ring tempting you, right? If you get your ring emblem, you're just going to have the first ability there. Your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. You're not going to have the other 3 until the ring tempts you again, right? You need the ring to tempt you to move up the slots. And as you do, because this is an emblem, you're going to have it for the entire game. It's not going anywhere. This is not like the monarchy where it can get stolen from you. In fact, every single player in the game can have a ring emblem if they want. And as you get up there, these abilities don't go away. So if you get, you know, I guess if the ring tempts you 4 times, you'll have all of these. So your ring bearer is going to be legendary, can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. When it attacks, you get to loot. You have to sacrifice the blocker if it gets blocked. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. And that's going to stick around for the entirety of the game. And if that creature dies, now if I want it to be a new creature, I have to use the tempt ring mechanic, I guess, again in order to choose a different creature. You know, but the abilities are still there though, right? As the emblem gains abilities, the abilities stick around. This is complex. I'll just say that. There is a lot going on here. This is not just like the monarchy or even dungeons where, you know, like with the monarchy, it's very simple. You toss around the monarchy, people get to draw an extra card. Really, really simple. With dungeons, there's kind of a lot going on there, but it only involves that player. Only the person who has the dungeons really cares about what's going on there, right? They move through the dungeons and, you know, the other players aren't really that involved at all. They don't have to do anything, certainly. With this, man, this really almost feels like a game within a game. You know what I mean? There's like a mini game going on here. There's so much involved with this. I mean, you just look at this card. You look at the back side, all that's involved there, and then the front side, all that's involved there. When I first saw that the ring tempts you mechanic, I thought it would be like a little thing, like the monarchy, something like that. There's a lot going on here with both the front and back of this card. And you're really going to have to be brushed up on the rules of this, even if you're not doing this at all, right? Even if you're not doing the ring thing, you probably want to be brushed up on this a little bit, just so you know what's going on, right? So that it doesn't have to constantly be explained to you. There's a lot going on here. This is almost like a mini game inside of the game. That's how much stuff is going on this card. So now that we know what this mechanic is doing, we can kind of go back and look at some of these cards that have already come out, right? So let's go do that. So Frodo, Sorin's Bane, 1 white mana, Halfling Citizen 1/2. I always like those really cheap commanders. Doesn't get much cheaper than that, right? Has an ability with 2 Orzhov hybrid mana, which means this is a black-white commander, right? If this is your commander, which of course it could be because it's a legendary creature. I find it pretty interesting that they decided to make this a black and white commander. I think because maybe Frodo was more tempted by the ring. I'm not the hugest Lord of the Rings guy ever. I'm not, you know, I've seen the movies. I read the Hobbit book. That's about it. So 2 hybrid Orzhov mana. If Frodo, Sorin's Bane is a citizen, which it starts out as a citizen, obviously, it becomes a halfling scout with base power and toughness 2/3 and lifelink. Pay 3 black mana. If Frodo is a scout, it becomes a halfling rogue with whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 or more times this game. Otherwise, the ring tempts you. Okay, so again, we have to know what all that other stuff means in order to sort of dissect this ability. So we're leveling up. That's why I think of this. I mean, obviously that's what they're going after. There are other cards that do stuff like this, where if it's this, then it becomes this. I think of it as leveling up, right? So now we've leveled up to going from a scout to a rogue. So now when this creature deals combat damage, so you still have the 2/3 lifelink, obviously. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 more times. So obviously, you know, like I said, with the emblem, you have to go through the list. And when you get to the last one, you've gotten those 4 abilities. So that's what they're talking about here. And if you have gotten there, that player loses the game. That's pretty darn good. Otherwise, the ring tempts you. So now our commander, once we get to the halfling rogue level, I guess, we get in for damage, and the ring tempts you. And if you haven't had a card that has tempted you before now, this is when you get the emblem, right? If you haven't gotten it yet, you now get the emblem and you go to that first ability. And of course, those abilities will play into what your commander is doing as well, right? And obviously, because you are very much in a I want to be getting in for damage theme here, you're going to want to be doing that a lot, right? I'll just throw out some of my all-time favorites like Power Matrix, which is going to give your commander flying, and it's going to make it a lot easier to get in for damage, or Dothi Embrace, which is going to give your commander Shadow, which makes it essentially unblockable. Just some really, fun, interesting ways to have your commander get in for damage, which is obviously what you want to be doing. As a commander, this is interesting, having your commander say that player loses the game on it really is going to make it tough on you. It's flavor-wise, it's great, but what's going to happen is once you get up to the fourth ability on your emblem is everyone's just going to be removing your commander constantly. You're going to need, Whisper Silk Cloak probably might be the best bet here because you're going to want to give your commander Shroud or Protection or something. Any commander that says lose the game or win the game on it, that's always going to be the case. Pretty interesting. I like it. It's neat. Very flavorful, obviously, which is really important with all these Lord of the Rings cards. You want it to fit flavor-wise with the books and the movies and all of that. All right, let's move on and look at another one. So, of course, we have Gollum, Patient Plotter, 1 and a black halfling horror, 3/1. When Gollum, Patient Plotter leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you. So, again, we are tempting, but here we want our commander to leave the battlefield. That's interesting. So, pay a black, sacrifice a creature, return Gollum from your graveyard to your hand, activate only as a sorcery. Okay, so that's how it works. I will also point out, I'm not the biggest fan of I like alternate art on my cards. I'm not the biggest fan of the alternate border cards, but I really like these ones. Like these cards look pretty cool. These are the alternate, I'm not sure exactly what they're calling these, but it's sort of an alternate border. It's extended art in a way, but kind of not. That's kind of what I like about it. They did a really good job with these. The art looks really cool here. So obviously what you can do, the easiest way to go about this, I suppose, is I play my commander. You can sacrifice your Golem to its own ability, because obviously this is sacrifice a creature. Return Golem from your graveyard to your hand. So can you not just sacrifice this guy to his own ability, right? This isn't targeting anything, right? So if you're returning a target card from your graveyard to the battlefield, for example, you have to target it in your graveyard. And if it's not there yet, it doesn't work. Here, though, it just says return Golem from your graveyard to your hand. So can't I just sacrifice Golem to his own ability? And then he, when the ability resolves, he's already in the graveyard and he just goes back to my hand, right? Can't I do that? I'm pretty sure I can. Also, another thing they've been doing lately, by the way, that I don't love is they've been shortening the names on stuff. Like it says when Golem, Patient Plotter leaves the battlefield. And then the second ability just says return Golem from your graveyard to your hand. And it's entirely likely that there's going to be another creature called Golem something else, right? I don't love that. They've been doing it a lot lately, and obviously you're referring to this card when you say return Golem from your graveyard to your hand, but what if there's another legendary creature called Golem, something else, and that's in your graveyard? Technically, you could return that to your hand. So I don't love that they've been shortening those names. I think they're just trying to save space on the card or something, but anyway, this is interesting. I think that it is very obvious here that you can just pay 1 black, sacrifice your commander, and then return it to your hand, right? And maybe they did it that way so that you can very easily have the ring tempt you over and over again, right? So it would be 3 mana. 3 mana, the ring tempts you. Put your commander back in your hand, do it again, do it again. And then obviously you can sacrifice other creatures as well to get your commander back in your hand if you want to. So you're in a sacrifice theme. But you're also, I guess with any of these commanders, the ring tempting you is probably the biggest part of the build around here, right? You're going to want to build around that a lot. All right, let's look at one more today. Samwise the Stout-Hearted. And I find it interesting that they made Frodo white and black, but Samwise is mono white. So I guess that means he's, pure of heart or something like that. So 1 and a white halfling peasant, 2/1 with flash. When Samwise the Stout-Hearted enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. Return it to your hand, then the ring tempts you. So if we get away from the ring tempting you part, your commander's not doing a whole lot, right? You flash it in and you can get a permanent card from your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield. So, I guess you could do a little bit of, I sacrifice my own stuff. Maybe you got a soul snare. sacrifice that to get rid of an opponent's attacking creature. Then you can flash this in, return it to your hand. You could do that. Or, my opponent destroys my Smothering Tithe and I actually really want it, so I'm going to get it back. Sure. Again, though, building around the Ring Tempting You is going to be the biggest part of this, right? That's going to be the part that you really want to build around, because the Ring Tempting You is going to be, or the ring in general, is going to be doing so much more than what your commander's doing. Your commander's not doing a whole lot. The build around here is because your commander has an enter the battlefield ability, you want to be doing blinking. That to me is, if I'm building this commander, mono white blink deck, and, ephemerate my commander, because again, my Smothering Tithe just got destroyed by someone. I blink my commander, it comes into play, I get my Smothering Tithe back to hand, and then I get, do the ring tempting thing, because every time my commander ETBs, I get to tempt with the ring. And, I also think it would be important, if you're building any of these ring decks, to put creatures in there, again, that you want to be making the ring bearer. I don't think you want to do Samwise as your ring bearer. Not very good flavor-wise. I suppose with the other two it is, with him it's not. You probably want another, like a creature with flying, right? A creature with shadow, a creature with evasion. That's what if I'm building this deck, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a bunch of creatures in here with evasion that I want to be getting in for damage with, because, again, if you have a ring bearer, the ring bearer probably wants evasion. It's a creature that you want to be getting in for damage. So I can either have a creature that I already want to be getting in for damage with, or I have a creature that has a really good evasion that I can be getting the abilities off of my ring as it attacks, right? So I think that's probably how you want to build this deck. Like Solitary Visionary is one that I've mentioned quite a bit on my channel. That's a great creature here, where there's a creature that not only does it have great evasion, it's essentially unblockable because it has shadow, but also when it gets in for damage, you get to destroy an enchantment. So it has another nice added bonus to be doing something you already want to do, which is getting in for damage. So that's one way to go with this. Pretty interesting stuff. Again, I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings guy. I'm sure anyone that is, I'm sure there's a lot of crossover there. The Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap between Magic the Gathering players and Lord of the Rings fans. I would say I'm sort of in the middle. I would say I'm way more of a D&D guy than I am a Lord of the Rings guy. The flavor here seems pretty good. I know a lot of Lord of the Rings, the real Lord of the Rings fans are going to be super critical about the flavor here. So you guys can let me know. All the big Lord of the Rings fans can let me know in the comments below how the flavor is and how well these characters and what the ring is doing actually fits with the stories. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.